Welcome back to the Takeout. Wisconsin Republican Senator Ron Johnson joins me now from Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Senator, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Let me talk.
Thanks for having me.
We'll get to the FDA and we'll get to vaccines in just a second, I promise you. But quickly, John Cornyn is facing possible defeat today to Ken Paxton in Texas. Where do you come down on that race?
Well, I don't endorse any candidate. I let the voters decide. I'll let the voters in Texas decide this one. Obviously, John has voted with the president, and he's been a valued member of our conference. I'll support whoever emerges from that primary against the Democrat opponent.
Got it. What is your take currently, Senator, as you know it, and we're all trying to figure out what the bottom line is of a possible emerging deal between the president and Iran?
I've always felt Iran was an existential threat to America if they became a nuclear power. That is the bottom line, is from my standpoint, in terms of President Trump. He's been saying this for literally decades. As every American president since Clinton has said, you can't allow Iran to become a nuclear power. President Trump is just the first president to do something about it. And it's not without risk. It's not easy. They've got their Mosaic defense. There's about a million of their brutal regime that are armed. The rest of the 90 million Iranians are not, which is why they're being held hostage by this brutal regime. So the sooner that regime is on the dustbin of history, the better. But it's not an easy task.
Are you comfortable with the deal that just reopens the Strait of Hormuz and leaves other matters, nuclear ambitions, support of terrorist proxies, its existing stockpile, though diminished, of drones and missiles intact?
I have the same concerns as others, as I'm quite sure that President Trump has the same concerns. But again, let's see how this all develops. We cannot allow Iran to become a nuclear power. That's the bottom line. We can't allow them to be able to hold the Strait of Hormuz hostage, which is what they're doing right now. Looks like all the other regional powers are certainly lined up against Iran. So this war has certainly realigned the politics there, hopefully realigned to the positive going forward.
There was a lot of conversation, as you well know, Senator, last week in the Republican conference about the proposed weaponization fund. Are you net a supporter of that fund? And how do you regard the answers that you and your Senate Republican colleagues got from the acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche?
Well, as I understand it, this would just be an extension of the judgment fund, part of the Treasury that's been around for literally decades. Obama used it, Biden used it, now Trump will use it. I'm fully supportive of it. I know that the Biden administration weaponized government against good people like Judge Trupis here in Wisconsin. Lawfare has destroyed that man. A couple $1 million worth of legal fees because of that weaponization. So I think the government in all administrations abuses American citizens. They ought to have some fund that they can be compensated out of. So I'm basically supportive of that. The timing was awful. Hopefully we can get back in next week and do the reconciliation bill to fund CBP and ICE because Democrats refuse to do so, and have an overriding amendment that will put guardrails on that so nobody have a problem with it.
What kind of guardrails do you want, Senator?
Well, obviously, we don't want people who committed acts of violence against anybody, against police, people who are now convicted rapists or whatever. We don't want those people accessing the fund. There needs to be a process that can be vetted properly. Just the way the judgment fund has been used in prior administrations, oftentimes on a partisan basis, but sometimes people are abused on a partisan basis.
Senator, you recently sent a letter to Health Secretary Kennedy claiming that the Food and Drug Administration under President Biden, quote, deliberately used a system incapable of truly identifying safety signals. This is in COVID vaccines, and if I understand it correctly, specifically those delivered to children. What are you driving at?
First of all, Major, I appreciate you having me on because you're the first major network that's actually covered this report that's been out now for 4 weeks. What our report uncovered, because of Bobby Kennedy's commitment to radical transparency, on March 1st of 2021, Peter Marks, the head of CBER, that's the division within FDA that approves and then monitors safety of vaccines, was briefed that the algorithm they were using to monitor and analyze the VAERS system, the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, was going to hide and mask safety signals of the COVID injections. 26 days later, using a new algorithm, the data mining experts presented that finding 49 cases of extreme masking under the old system. With the new system, 25 safety signals on very serious adverse events like sudden cardiac death, pulmonary infarction, Bell's palsy, different types of strokes. 3 consecutive months after that, they continued to do other data mining showing more safety signals. And yet Peter Marks decided to stick with the old algorithm, lied to the American public, said we're not seeing safety signals. So he was presented a long list of safety signals. Here's just the first data run. Okay, 25 very serious safety signals. So from my standpoint, this is the largest, the biggest government scandal in my lifetime, because the American people had a right to know. They should have had informed consent before they lined up, and certainly before they subjected their children, who had virtually zero chance of serious side effects from actual COVID, to line them up for an experimental injection, and children died. That's a separate little cover-up underneath this, when the FDA analyzed 96 child deaths, some with autopsies. Again, we're digging into that, but it's looking like that's a pretty corrupt process as well. Another case of cover-up.
I've read, Senator, I like your appraisal of this, that when you look at the totality of doses of the vaccine administered, even at the higher end of your suggested childhood death rate, it would be a per dose death rate of 1 in 19.7 million or 1 in 69 million, depending on the metrics. And people who are advocates of the vaccine and the administration process therein say that's a smaller percentage of childhood deaths than you might find if they got a dose of ibuprofen. How do you evaluate that?
So I know the numbers. So we did this analysis in 2023 when people said the same thing. Well, there's so many doses out there. So for the COVID vaccine, when we did this in 2023, is 25.5 deaths per million doses given for the COVID injection versus 0.46 for the flu vaccine. That's a 55-fold increase. Today on VAERS worldwide, there's 39,000 deaths reported on VAERS worldwide associated with COVID injection. 24% of those occur either on the day of vaccination or within 1 or 2 days. There's about 1.7 million adverse events reported. And a CDC commission study at Harvard, the Pilgrim study, showed that only about 1% of all adverse events are actually reported to VAERS. So again, we can go round and round on numbers, but I've been looking into this for years. I didn't need a sophisticated algorithm, as we went from an average of about 290 deaths per year reported to VAERS associated with the vaccine up to 2020. 2021, there's 21,000. They had to hire additional people to process the backlog of VAERS reports. And yet now we know Peter Marks, he was shown that their analysis was going to hide safety signals. He was shown the safety signals, and he didn't alert the American people. The American people had a right to know, to make an informed decision whether or not they want to subject themselves or their children to that experimental gene therapy. That's what it is. It's not a true vaccine, and they were not given that information. They had the right to know. They were denied that right.
Let us have a longer conversation about this, because I'm genuinely curious about what you found, what you believe happened, and if you say it's the biggest scandal in your lifetime, I want to have a longer conversation about it. But I appreciate teeing it up. Senator Ron Johnson, Republican of Wisconsin, I appreciate it.
I also want that longer conversation. Our investigation's just begun.
Very good. We'll come back to you on it, I promise you. Senator Johnson, I appreciate it. Thank you.